World War II, 1939 to 1945. Let's look at the objectives. First objectives ask us to look at the countries that were either directly or indirectly involved in the war. Here on screen we have a map of Eastern and Western Europe. Then we have a map of the world showing where Europe is located and where the Caribbean is located. What were the causes of World War I? There were several causes or factors that led to the outbreak of the war in 1939. On screen, we have a wheel showing us some. So let's start with the Treaty of Versailles. There was a rise of fascism in Italy, Japanese expansionism, economic depression, anti-communism, appeasement, militarism, nationalism, and the rise of Adolf Hitler. Several factors were responsible for the outbreak of the war in Europe in 1939. Main reason is that the issues of World War I had not been settled to the satisfaction of the Germans in particular. Germany, as we know, was to be blamed for the outbreak of World War I, yet she felt that she was unjustly punished and refused to cooperate with the new rules. Once more, she became the aggressor on the European continent. Her actions and reactions would once again plunge the world into war. League of Nations was formed in 1920. Germany did not join until 1926. After the war, Italy and Germany supported rulers who were fascist dictators. They believed in using military aggression to solve domestic problems. The European nations decided that it was in the best interest of all concerned for the governments to have less destructive weapons. This was known as the Disarmament Clause. Germany did not agree to or cooperate with this demand. In 1929, the famous Wall Street crash occurred. This meant that American loans that were used to finance several projects and building works in Austria and Germany, especially, were no longer available. By the 1930s, there was a Great Depression. Unemployment rates soared on the continents of Europe and North America. Germany had about 16 million unemployed, Britain 2.75 of a million, the United States of America had 16 million. In 1933, Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany. He also believed that Germany had been treated unfairly. He and his team walked out of the military disarmament talks. Hitler refused to disarm Germany. Instead, it is believed that he began to stockpile on arms. It seems as if Hitler was demonstrating to the League of Nations that he, and by extension Germany, did not intend to obey the new rules that govern international relations. Hitler's aggressive policies were similar to those of Prime Minister Benito Mussolini of Italy and Prime Minister Hideki Tojo of Japan. All three glorified war as the means to world power. Tojo was the son of an army lieutenant. He himself later became an army officer. The three nations, Germany, Italy, and Japan, signed an alliance known as the Axis Alliance. Mussolini and Hitler were fascists. Fascism is a political system in which the ruler is dictator or a tyrant. The ruler usually comes to power by force or maintains power by force. The army or military is used to crush or get rid of any opposition. There is little personal liberty allowed in this system. The main features are aggression and force in both domestic and foreign policies. In 1935, Benito Mussolini attacked and took control of Ethiopia. Italy was supported by Hitler and Germany. Germany had done a step further. Not only was she aggressively challenging the other nations, she was also supporting those who did. This included Japan, who, backed by the rebellious Germany, attacked China. It seems as if Germany was intent on forming destructive alliances against the rules of the League of Nations. Unfortunately, the first response of Britain and France was appeasement. This is a policy of giving aggressive nations what they want in order to avoid war. It did not work. Hitler's policies were just as violent. He blamed the Jews for Germany's defeat in World War I. From as early as 1933, he had begun to put in place plans and policies to exterminate the Jews. He passed a set of discriminating laws in 1935. The Jews could not enter certain professions, they were not allowed to marry a non Jew, and they were forced to wear certain types of clothing. Some of their businesses were destroyed, while others were confiscated and became the property of the state. By 1937, Hitler was responsible for the death of approximately 6 million Jews. They met their deaths by various inhumane methods, such as the gas chamber, starvation, chemical experiments, and hard labor in concentration camps. This was known as the Holocaust. Why did the Allied powers use appeasement in dealing with a person like Hitler? They were desperately trying to avoid another world war. They had not yet recovered from the physical and financial devastation of the First War. Each nation had billions of dollars of debt to repay, as well as massive reconstruction and repair works yet to be done to infrastructure such as roads and bridges. The United States suffered the greatest financial loss. She was painfully aware that the European creditors would not be able to repay the loans they owed her. Her economy was in recession. She decided not to get involved. Hitler interpreted the actions of the international community as weakness. He saw the appeasement as a green light, and he went speeding along the road of destruction and terror. These were clear violations of international law and human rights. The members of the League could not stand idly by while Hitler destroyed peace on the continent, but neither could they afford another world war. They decided to try and reach a compromise. On September 3, 1938, they met with Hitler in Munich. They allowed Hitler to annex the part of Czechoslovakia that he had taken in return for his pledge to end territorial aggression on the continent. But Hitler was not a man of his word, or not for long. 1 year later, on September 1, 1939, German forces crossed into Poland. The invasion was so fast and brutal, it forced two Allied powers, Britain and France, to abandon their peaceful strategy. On September 3, 1939, Britain and France declared war on Germany. Within a year, Hitler had attacked at least 7 countries. These include Norway, Denmark, Belgium, and Holland. He also claimed the rest of Czechoslovakia. In June 1940, Italy, in support of Germany, invaded France and declared war on Britain. German Air Force began bombing British airfields, factories, and cities as they prepared to invade and conquer Europe. By September of that same year, Japan joined forces with the Axis powers. At this point, Britain knew she needed more help. She appealed to the United States, who maintained her neutrality. She definitely did not take sides or get involved in this war. Instead, gave Britain 50 old refurbished warships known as destroyers. Where was Russia in all of this? She too remained neutral. She was now a communist country and was therefore no longer an ally of the democratic nations of the Allied powers. Yet, on June 1941, Hitler attacked her to get some of her wheat and oil. That same year, the United States, led by President Franklin D. Roosevelt, decided to abandon its policy of neutrality. He entered the war on the side of the Allied powers against Germany, Italy, and Japan in particular. The American president wanted to stop Japan's expansion in the Pacific so close to territories that she owned, but the decision to enter the war was really in response to Japan's aggression. On December 7, 1941, the Japanese bombers attacked Pearl Harbor, an American port in Hawaii. Within 2 hours, about 25 airplanes and more than 20 battleships and vessels docked in Pearl Harbor were destroyed. It is estimated that about 4,500 Americans were killed or wounded. America entered the war to protect American life, liberty, and property. America dropped atomic bombs on 2 Japanese cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Over 150,000 Japanese were said to have been killed in the two attacks. Armed with this new modern and effective weaponry, the Allied powers advanced menacingly on Germany. Rather than face capture and imprisonment, Hitler committed suicide in his underground bunker in Berlin on May 7, 1945. On hearing this, his deputies agreed to an unconditional surrender. The Japanese surrendered on September 2, 1945. The war had come to an end. What were the effects of the war on the international community and the Caribbean? 1. The League of Nations was replaced by the United Nations. 51 nations except communist countries were represented in this international organization. It was created on June 26, 1945, to prevent succeeding generations from ever having to experience the horrors of another world war. To date, it has been successful. 2. The United Nations is also responsible for the preservation and protection of human rights across the globe. Three agencies were created to help these aims. 1. The Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO. 2. World Health Organization, the WHO. 3. The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. After a long and bitter struggle, India was able, on the basis of its cooperation in World War I and II, to successfully demand and receive its independence in 1947. The effects on the Caribbean are as follows. The British government gave permission to the United States of America to lease air and military bases in six of her West Indian colonies during the war. These countries were Antigua, Bahamas, British Guiana, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Trinidad, and Tobago. These bases provided employment for a number of persons in which a wide range of areas, from construction to the service industries. The presence of the American soldiers had an impact on the culture of the Caribbean. Their presence directly affected our language and dress in particular. Caribbean people began to wear jeans and t-shirts and copy the American accents. The American presence in the Caribbean during World War I has furnished the theme for some of Trinidad's calypso songs, provided inspiration for at least two of Louis Bennett's poems, and the theme for at least one of the literature texts we use in our secondary schools, namely Crick Crack Monkey. Approximately 7,000 West Indians served as volunteers in the British Air Force during the war. Others worked in maritime factories.